I mean, obviously eliminating poverty. Okay, let's get that one off the table. That, you know, that would be the biggest single thing. But that schools can do. I have thought a lot about this because, you know, as a political scientist who teaches urban public policy, I've looked at a lot of alternatives, and I talk about them in my writing. If I can only go one thing, and I'm gonna have to qualify a little bit, but it would be early childhood education. It would be pre-K. It would be getting kids learning ready before they arrive. I would say pre-K. I want my pre-K to be taught by certified teachers. I don't want to be just babysitting. Babysitting would be better than what we have, but I want to do more with it because we could. I also would like to put some of these pre-K high quality institutions in low-income neighborhoods, make them magnets so that, you know, the pre-K here is as good as any place, if not better, and people want to put their kids in these pre-K institutions in the low-income areas, so that you would encourage some interaction between races and classes and so on. I think what gets lost in the school choice stuff is if you're going to go that route, then make the most desirable schools the low-income neighborhood schools, so that the kids that have to walk to school, that don't have transportation, that don't have consistent parents in their lives, have a high-quality school to go to, and the other kids can magnet in. I think, you know, we could accomplish a lot of this by making high-quality pre-K and possibly locating it in some of the poorest neighborhoods.
I just to give a different answer and to maybe end on a more provocative note, I think the greatest policy change that would realize robust upward mobility for working class peoples of color would be to abolish private schools, to make private schools illegal at the K-12 level. So I mean private and privatized or privatizing schools. So I don't think there should be private schools, of course, but I don't think there should be charter schools. I don't think there should be magnet schools. I don't think there should be selective schools. I don't think there should be schools that you have to have achieved a certain level of attendance or behavior qualifier in order to attend. I actually believe in neighborhood schools because I think neighborhoods should have far, far more impact on what young people learn in those schools. It's staggering to me how little we know about the actual areas that we live in. I live in Memphis, right? And I know we all have Memphis ties with Rhodes and everything like that, right? So Southern Avenue's right over there. Central Avenue's a ways that way. How many people in this city do you think know that Southern is called Southern because it was the southern tip of the Treasement plantation, and it was the southern road that went through and across the plantation, and Central was called Central because it was the central thoroughfare through the Treasement plantation? How many young people have been at Rhodes or been to a party on Treasement Street at Rhodes and had no concept that Treasement was a slaveholder? These kinds of pieces, we could fix a lot of this, y'all, if we actually just taught people about where they live. But it doesn't make sense to do that, right? If you're supposed to drive 30 or 45 minutes or an hour in whatever direction, and whatever adult has the capacity to actually do that for you and whatever else. I think the most robust thing we could do is to have actual neighborhood schools that actually teach students about the neighborhood. To me, that's the best way to remove some of these different kinds of like brain drain kinds of problems. Success in this community means leaving this community. This is something that's actually really rampant in Memphis, for instance, right? If you really make it, if you're really smart, if you're really bright, one of the measures of that, right, is that you're not in Memphis anymore. And this is something that's pernicious in a lot of different communities. I met a lot of people in South Africa that had this, you know, that had to kind of overcome this notion, right, of being really successful in South Africa means you live in Europe. And how is it that we overcome that? It's by making school an actual product, part of the community that we're embedded in, learning about that community. I don't see a way to do that without having a school be part of a community, the end.
I think that this notion that if you support public schools, you support a cookie cutter, one size fits all, standardized tests, everybody does the same page on the same day, yada, yada, yada. I am a big fan of site-based management. I think schools should be able to adapt to their community. They probably should be able to pick their curriculum, their calendar, their teachers to fit that neighborhood. And yes, in a city, and particularly a city like Memphis where there's mobility, you have to be somewhat conscious of that. But I think you can do both. I think you can do both, even though these kids are bouncing. I think you can do both. God forbid, you might actually provide them transportation to come back to their neighborhood school. But, you know, without incurring that expense, I think it's very important what Zach says, that the schools should reflect the lives of the kids that are attending them. There was a proposal by old Vice President Walter Mondale. He said we should peg public schools, if we're going to have private schools, peg public school spending at 90% of whatever the most expensive school is spending. That would kind of eliminate private schools to some extent, I think. If whatever MUS is spending per student, you spent that in Fraser, the school in Fraser might look a little different, and the campus might look a little different. Again, it's not going to solve all problems. We've made that clear. But I do think the private school piece is one we should be aware of.